Namaskar, good evening. I welcome all the sisters and brothers in online meeting of Indian section. Today, Vimalji will be continuing her presentation on the book, The Inner Life of Krishnamurti, Part 2, written by Aryal Sanat ji. First, we will invoke the universal prayer. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom. O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May each who feels himself as one with thee know he is also one with every other. Now I want to introduce Vimalji. Although all the senior members know about Vimal Balachandranji, but I would like to introduce her for new members. Vimal Balachandranji is an architect, an artist, and a member of Adyar Law, Chennai. Since 2010, she briefly volunteered at the TS Library and Bookshop. She has attended many School of Wisdom programs. She writes blogs and makes videos on her learning in Theosophy. She used to take groups on walks in the Theosophical Society before pandemic from 2015 to 2019. She started a special needs support center for families with differently abled or special children. She is supported in her quest for a morally upright life with her husband, Bala Chandranji, and her children, daughter, who is a lawyer, and son, who is an artist. I think Vimalji is an architect of life, and she is also a good orator. Now I request Vimalji enrich us by your discourse. Vimalji.
Thank you, Sushma ji, and thank you everyone for joining today. My apologies for the last time's program that the audio was very unclear. I have tried to make remedy this time. So we'll continue with the book part 2 of this book, The Inner Life of Krishnamurti, written by Ariel Sanat. Now, we've already discussed what was the role of perennial philosophy in Krishnamurti's coming. It was a theosophical society which actually put up Krishnamurti as a world teacher, and how he was discovered by CWL. We also discussed something about Kundalini, about the chakras, the background of all that. This time we are going to talk about the reality of Lord Maitreya and the masters in K's daily life. Now, this is something which we as theosophists don't discuss much, because and even Krishnamurti followers don't like to discuss this, but these are facts and we need to look at them also. K always was speaking against following any gurus and all that, but he was never against talking about teachers. He always believed that a teacher is a person who points the way. So in his own life, there were these masters always present. Now, we all know that the first initiation happened in 1911 when he wrote that book, At the Feet of the Masters. The second initiation happened in 1922 at Ojai Valley in California, when he was meditating, when Krishnamurti was meditating under this pepper tree. Now, this pepper tree, after that, this one is a young one. The one he meditated on actually fell. And in the same place, another pepper tree had come. So this is the new one. So under this tree, when he was meditating, he experienced the second initiation, and the Lord Maitreya, Gautama Buddha, and other masters were supposed to have come at that time to him. And after that, also some things were happening which we will discuss. Before that, of course, we need to know what do we mean by initiation. We all know, I mean, Buddhists have their way of talking about initiation, the Hindus have their way of talking about initiation, but Krishnamurti's way of talking about initiation is that a candidate dies to the old associations, identifications, and expectations of daily life, implying that a greater field is opening up by this process of dying to the known. So, in a way, the candidate awakens to a richer and more compassionate life, as if he is viewing his whole life from a mountain top. Another advantage is that once a person becomes an initiate, he also gets contacted with, or he can be contacted with by other initiates. He gets in touch with other people. So that's who have also had these experiences. So that is what is initiation. Also, a person who is now having a much broader perspective of life. That is initiation, and also a person who's dying from the known. Now, this is something controversial in the TS. And why did Krishnamurti, when so much had been done around in CWL, and Annie Besant had put their life into developing him, Annie Besant had adopted him, CW had spent years training him, and then they spent all that money to send both him and his brother to London to train him, and so many things. And of course, so many people donated to for the Order of the Star and all that. That whole organization was set up, but Krishnamurti just completely broke it up in 1929. He also broke away from the TS. And this is what this book says, why he did that. He says, the book says that he came to perceive that the vast majority of theosophists felt themselves part of an elite. Elite means something special. They did not seem to have the level of commitment required to go through an initiation in the perennial sense, that is, dying completely to the known, which includes notions of oneself as superior or inferior, yet spoke endlessly, mostly in terms of notions that they had taken from books of initiations and the path that they said led to it. So it had become a kind of knowledge based environment where people were all talking about, I am becoming an initiate, I'm becoming an initiate, but that I aspect is not there. The dying to the known, dying to one's own self, previous self, or the personality was not actively being participated. So he began to feel the whole thing was not going in the right direction. So he was finding himself surrounded with such people who did not want to change themselves completely. And his breaking from this theosophical society, people may assume, was his own thinking, but it was also encouraged by the masters themselves. It was something where the masters themselves felt that humanity needed to engage in a transformation, and a transformation of the type which had not been done before. So a new way of transformation also was being experimented on by the masters through K. We'll see about that now. So what the masters were trying to achieve with K was that K was probably the spearhead of the effort on part of the perennial teachers, that is the masters, to make the perennial practice of initiation more common, rather than something only a handful of people can take in. That means what he's trying to say is that the when we read the theosophical books, we think that okay, somebody has to initiate us, some master has to come to initiate us, whereas the masters then were experimenting with the possibility that people can self initiate, they themselves can initiate by themselves, and it will all become more common. So if we look at it, we could say that K carried forward the movement which was begun by HPB to put behind us the secrecy. And first, HPB wanted to open up on all the secrecy which was surrounding the occult philosophy and initiation, all that. Now, K was bringing out this aspect of initiation out into the open so that it's accessible to everybody. So there's no secrets about all these matters. So that was what the masters were trying to achieve through K. Okay, it was not just a repetition of what HPB had done, but something new. And why was all this happening only in America? Now, K's work is intimately related to America because it is a perennial renaissance. Renaissance means something new. The individual, whatever individual transformation that was going to take place was connected with a global transformation. And America actually has these perennial values of equality, fraternity, and freedom as part of its constitution, its base values, where an individual's rights were sacred. Before the founding of America, all societies were based on hierarchical models. That means king, queen, all that type rulers. That was the way all the societies all over the world were based. This freedom, this equality, this democracy was the first time it was being practiced in America. Now, perennial values have always been difficult for most people to incorporate in their daily lives. Thus, today we find that the same hierarchical models are still in effect in every part of the world, including United States. Even now, the same hierarchical means, there's nepotism in politics also. There's that all that hierarchy still there and there, but that equality is not there completely. But that is why America was chosen, because it was a free place. Now here there is a beautiful, commentary where the writer brings out what HPB has discussed in the Secret Doctrine about the Maitreya. When the Lord Maitreya or the Kalki avatar will come, according to HPB, is written in the Vishnu Puran, and this is quoted here. According to HPB, in the Vishnu Puran, it says that the Lord Kalki avatar will come when then property alone will confer rank. Wealth will be the only source of devotion. Passion will be the sole bond of union between the sexes. Falsehood will be the only means of success in litigation. Women will be objects merely of sensual gratification. Earth will be venerated but for its mineral treasures. Lord Maitreya was supposed to come at such a time. That is even now. I mean, all of these things about property, wealth, about the status of women, about relationships between man and woman, about the way we treat our earth, all that is something even now. And that is, it is such a time that Lord Maitreya or the Kalki Avatar is supposed to come. Which of course now we will see that how this Lord Maitreya's consciousness affected K, and what were the teachings connected to all this that was being given. HPB and C.W. Leadbeater both had predicted the beginning of a new age or sixth root race coming from California. Both had predicted that, which is where K lived most of his life. And then there's one small thing which I think was thought was interesting. HPB also predicted that drugs and mighty corporations will be the nemesis of humanity. So we are seeing that how all this is true, what HPB predicted. But on the other hand, it seems that had America not been there, it would have been difficult for both the theosophical movement and as well for Krishnamurti, because that kind of freedom of speech and freedom of thought is there in America. It was impossible for even HPB and Colonel Olcott had to leave US and come to India, because her talking about Christianity, I mean the Christian churches and all that, was very difficult for her to get away with that. She could get away with that in America, but even there it was difficult to spread. Certainly she couldn't talk about it in Europe, and definitely not in a home country of Russia, which was actually a very religious country. So that is why America has been a very important place for both Krishnamurti's life and for Theosophical Society's beginning. Now, let's here look at Now, one more thing is that K, he never spoke in any dictatorship country, in any totalitarian country. He never went to Russia. He never went to China. He refused to travel even to India, even though he loved his country, when there was a state of emergency declared. So at that time, 1975, I think it was 75, 76. So that time, he refused to travel to India. Now, Theosophists believe that new humanity will be developing in California, just like I said. This would presumably be a human being whose brain synapses would not function in terms of closed tribal loops. Initiation would gain a wider meaning in the new age, the creation of a new humanity. This aspect of how the brain works in closed loops we'll be going into. So, but here this is where they are talking about where the brain itself will change, that in the new humanity. Here Krishnamurti is saying this: control in any form is harmful to total understanding. A disciplined existence is a life of conformity. In conformity, there is no freedom from fear. Habit destroys freedom. Habit of thought, habit of drinking, and so on makes for a superficial and dull life. Organized religion, with its beliefs, dogmas, rituals, denies the open entry into the vastness of mind. It is this entry that cleanses the brain of space time. Being cleansed, the brain can deal with time space. So it's like, see, the whole thing is, if Krishnamurti talked about how much influence was there of the masters in his life, people would have made him into a god. You would have made him into an avatar or something. So that's something that was something he never wanted, the masters never wanted. Similarly, even in the Theosophical Society, they never wanted that the masters should be venerated. There was never that sort of thinking. It was always transformation, dying to the known. That was the emphasis. So again, here when you read Krishnamurti from that angle, that you will start trying to grasp slowly what he's talking about. It will seem contradictory, but you will grasp as time passes. Now this whole aspect of transformation, of spiritual transformation, it's not that the Theosophical Society is the first one which is talking about this. It has been always been there, and the first university that was started for this type of transformation was started by Pythagoras. And even now, it was started in a city called Crotone in Greece. Today, in US, there is in Crotona. That place is called Crotona. Center is of Theosophy in Crotona. Is named after that first university which was started by Pythagoras in Greece. And he is called Pythagoras, as we know, is the earlier reincarnation of Master Ptolemy KH. And Pythagoras, was called the father of Western civilization. And he was also the father of esoteric teachings in the West. So, why I'm just bringing this point is, so very interestingly, this author goes into this, that it's not that, okay, there was a time when only these kind of associations or institutes like, yeah, our Theosophical Society and all are doing this kind of spiritual work. It's not that today even universities are doing such spiritual work, although there are only a handful of such universities which are inspired by Pythagoras' school, where initiation was something they're actively trying to understand and pursue. So he has given a name of three universities. This like the California Institute in San Francisco, one in Berkeley, and one in Orinda. So I just thought this is just a small thing which we don't know, and thought it'll be interesting for us to know that such things are happening in the world today. So now we go on to, we are discussing Krishnamurti, Lord Maitreya, and the masters. We have to go to what was called the process. The process was something which was actively being done by the masters in case brain. So that's what we are going to discuss. Numerous elements of case process suggest that it began as an initiation conducted by the masters, and thereafter consisted of either the after effects of that first initiation, or things were happening at a deeper level all through his life. Both Krishnamurti and Leadbeater have independently said that K's process was an initiation, and every statement K made subsequently on that subject affirmed the same. So this is something. Now we're going to look at K's initiation, how it was similar to general initiation as we know, but and also how it was different. So the aspects of K's initiation, which is common to all initiations, are that there was an awakening of Kundalini under the supervision of a master. There was an awareness of other planes or other dimensions. There was physical pain. There was a painful lump in his neck, in his brain, in his head. There was pain. So there was physical pain. Fourth is there was a deep sense of unity with all humanity and everything. So these four things are common for any initiation. But the aspect in which the case initiation was different was that, unlike in other initiations where an initiate has to overcome, they say, the three fetters or the five kleshas, they have the initiate has to do a lot of hard work before he can do initiation. That's what even in theosophy we discussed that. So we discussed that he has to get over the fetters of the delusion of self, of doubt, of superstition. But K never needed to do that. Krishnamurti did not need to do that. He was only a willing spectator. He was just he had to just be calm and be patient. Everything was done to him. He was not directing anything through a meditative process. Although it happened after just 15 days of meditation for half an hour. For half an hour, 15 days, he meditated in 1922, and this major initiation happened. A huge change happened in his life, but he himself did not do anything else actively for it. Another thing is his initiation started on that day, but it took 49 days to actually complete. For 49 days, something was going on inside him from an external source. And this long period of initiation of 49 days usually is called a grand avataric initiation, and is similar to how Gautama Buddha got initiated. Otherwise, usually initiations take either 3, 7, 14, 21, or 40 days. But Krishnamurti's took 49 days. So in this way, Krishnamurti's initiation was different. Now, Krishnamurti in 1934, let me just read this. Wow, the thing that I wanted to tell is that actually in the 1930s till the 1950s, Krishnamurti was not talking about the masters. He started talking about the masters openly, but still in private circles only in the 1960s. So let's read what was happening in 1934. That is 5 years after breaking his official ties with the Theosophists and dissolving the Order of the Star, Kay received a letter from Lady Emily Lutyens. She was on all accounts the person closest to him at that time and remained so until her death in 1964. So she was someone whom he used to call as mother, and she used to take care of him. Her children were also in the Theosophical Society, and it was her daughter Mary Lutyens who later on wrote many nice biographies of Krishnamurti. So to Emily had written something like that I don't think you are the world teacher. To which K has responded that I have never denied it. That is, I have never denied being a world teacher. I have only said that it does not matter who or what I am, but that they should examine what I say, which does not mean that I have denied being a world teacher. What he's saying is that I'm not denying being a world teacher. I am the world teacher, but that is not important. What I'm actually saying, my teachings are more important. So this was one time he openly admitted that he was the world teacher. To K, his esoteric life was of utmost seriousness and even sacredness. Now, one second. Just a moment. So he has always been saying that there is, in matters of spirituality and psychological issues, one should never have an authority. Means you should not give up your freedom of thought when it comes to dealing with your mind, and when it comes to dealing with spiritual matters. You should never give up that someone knows better than you and you are following someone. No, someone may know better, you may learn from them, but you are still free, you are not attached to anybody. So this was something he always believed in. He said that a true teacher has no authority, he only points out to the truth. He also said that there were masters, but he did not want to talk openly about them. Throughout his life, he did not like to discuss that openly, but he always had that thinking that he was a vehicle for the Lord Maitreya, for the teachings of Lord Maitreya. So that is evident in many of his personal letters, in his writings. Now, beginning in the 1960s, K began to acknowledge his mission. Now the change took place. In the 1930s and 40s, he was 50s, he was not. Beginning of in the 1960s, K began to acknowledge his mission as the vehicle for Lord Maitreya in discussions with his closest associates, though still rarely in public. Now we know the scientist David Bohm, and we've heard the lectures the conversations between Bohm and Krishnamurti. David Bohm says about Krishnamurti, to the best of my knowledge, Krishnamurti looked at himself as an expression of what we may call the sacred or the universe, the cosmos. One minute, let me go do it again. To the best of my knowledge, Krishnamurti looked at himself as an expression of what we may call the sacred or the universe, the cosmos, that ground, which is the source of creative intelligence, which is not manifest and is beyond time. That is the ground of everything that is. And he thought that was expressing itself in some unique way through him at this particular stage of human history. So, what David Bohm is saying is that Krishnamurti thought that Parabrahman, we call Parabrahman in one simple word, Parabrahman. He has used many words to describe that, the universe, the cosmos, the ground of creative intelligence. All that very uniquely is expressing something with through him. That's what David Bohm says about Krishnamurti. Now, K's response when once Mary Lutens asked him, why do the masters now do not correspond with theosophists, for example? They stopped corresponding. After CWL died, there has been no except Jeffrey Hodgson, but then that claim was not accepted, is what whatever research I've done, I have heard that Jeffrey Hodgson's claim was not was admitted into the society that he had, but otherwise it was said that none of the masters were in touch. So Mary Lutens asked him that why is that, why are the masters not in touch now? So then he answered to Mary Lutens, there is no need, now the Lord is here. Means when the Lord Maitreya is speaking, the other masters do not speak. As we know, Lord Maitreya is one among the trinity of Mahachohan and Manu. Below them come these seven masters, the seven rays of the seven masters, out of which two we know as KH and M, who started the Theosophical Society. So they do not speak when their superior is speaking. So this was another instance, the hint where he has given. Now, the author here says that this does not mean that the Lord was manifesting only through him. It was like the state of insight and compassion was now reaching down to the whole world through him. So, here is another beautiful description of what they are talking about as that Lord Maitreya as being a state of insight and compassion. It's an entire consciousness which is in a state of insight and compassion, which is expressing itself through him. Afterwards. Now, how does K describe the first initiation? He says the first initiation in 1910. This is also very interesting, and because things have been happening to K from the very beginning of his life. So let's look at the first initiation in 1910. When I left my body the first night, I went at once to Master's house, Kate's house, and found him there. That is, he is in the astral body. He has gone to Master Kate's house with the Master Maurya. He had gone to Master Kate's house and found him there with Master Maurya and Master Dhvalkul. The master talked to me very kindly for a long time and told me all about the initiation and what I should have to do. Then we all went together to the house of the Lord Maitreya, where I had been once before. And there we found many of the masters, the Venetian master, the master Jesus, the master Count, the master Serapis, the master Hilarion, and the two masters Maurya and Cage. So all of these masters were there in Lord Maitreya's house. So here, let's go into what was the process. The perennial teachers were performing an extremely difficult and delicate psychobiological procedure. For once the procedure began until the end of his life, K was always a hair's breadth away from dying. Even though the evidence is clear that there was an awakening of Kundalini and that the perennial teachers were the ones making it happen, there is much about the process that remains unknown. Specific details of what was done to K was not available because, in Nitya's words, Nitya is his brother, he was told not to say anything of what was being done to him, and he gave his promise. From the umpteen records and books available, the process means something that happened to K's mind and brain, by which mutation took place, and the mighty consciousness of Maitreya could fill K's mind, This happened in painful intervals throughout K's life. Whenever it happened, that it was more like one master, it was always one master was present in astral form supervising it. K's mind appeared to be like a sponge, absorbing all that, yet had no pride or conceit. Perhaps such an experiment was the first of its kind in human history. So something like overshadowing, they say. Now this is a little more than that. There is more being done here than a bigger consciousness overshadowing another consciousness. They say in the life of Jesus, the Christ consciousness came upon this devotee called Jesus, who was just an ordinary carpenter. That's when he got his initiation. So this is not the first time actually that that type of thing has happened, but something more is happening here, where they are doing something which is actual physical brain also. In the 1940s, Kay did not share his esoteric experiences, as those around him were not aware of the theosophic concepts as physical, elemental, astral travel, the masters, etc. Plus, he did not want to form a cult around him either. But in 1960s, his closest friend Emily Lutyens was no more. She had passed. The Rajgopals had drifted away. That is, his friends and the person who was behind all the publication, Rajgopal and his wife Rosalind. They had moved. There was some differences between them. His biographies were being written by many people, and Krishnamurti Foundation had been formed newly. He started getting worried that people will start talking about many of these kinds of things in his life inaccurately. So then he started telling so that there's no confusion about what really happened regarding all these matters in his life. So that's why it started that in 1960s. This particular book, Krishnamurti, The Years of Awakening, talks about this entire esoteric history. So Kay's rich inner life was made public in Mary Lutyens' memoirs, the first volume of which was published in 1975. An earlier attempt had been made in 1950s by her mother, Lady Emily Lutyens, who had written this book called Candles in the Sun. But at the last minute, Kay requested her not to put any of the passages connected to the esoteric happenings in his life. So, for the very first time, this whole aspect of the esotericism in Kay's life was written in Krishnamurti's thing. Now, Pupul Jaikar has also written biographies of Krishnamurti. In 1969, Pupul Jaikar relates a conversation she and her sister Nandini had with K. Krishna ji, this is what she says, Krishna ji said that the masters had told C.W. Leadbeater to find a boy who was a Brahmin, who came from a good family, and who had a face as described. It was the duty of the Theosophical Society to protect the body of the child and to provide an atmosphere of complete security for 2 years. If the body was prepared and ready, Lord Maitreya would give the boy the mind. If the body was prepared and ready, Lord Maitreya would give the boy the mind. When Leadbeater saw Krishnamurti and Adyar Beach in 1909, he perceived that there was no selfishness in the boy's aura, and this is the person they were looking for. So this was an interesting thing which I have never read anywhere, that the masters had given a description of the kind of boy they were looking for to C.W. Leadbeater. So it was not that C.W. Leadbeater and Annie Besant were not looking for such a person. They were looking for that right boy. So this is very interesting, which is there in this book. Then this is something Mary Lutyens has said in this book, Krishnamurti, The Years of Fulfillment. Mary Lutyens says, I am inclined to believe that K is being used and has been used since 1922 by something from outside. I do not mean that he is a medium. A medium is separate from what he or she brings through, whereas K and whatever it is that manifests through him are for the most part one. His consciousness is as permeated with this other thing as a sponge with water. There are times, though, when the water seems to drain away, leaving him very much as he used to be when I first remember him: vague, gentle, fallible, shy, simple minded, compliant, affectionate, delighting to laugh at the silliest jokes, yet unique in his complete absence of vanity and self assertiveness. So now we actually, in the first part, we had gone through this, that why was K chosen? There were two reasons. One was that he had this vacancy of mind. He didn't have a lot of, heavy thinking, or all kinds of feelings. He was a kind of vacant mind. He used to just react to whatever was going on. He didn't have any lots of stuff. So awakened mind. Second was he had deep sense of devotion to the masters and his position in the, he knew his duty in the Theosophical Society. So these were the two reasons. Like here, Mary Lutens is saying that when the consciousness used to express itself through K, he was one type of person. But there were times when the consciousness was missing and he was back to being his old self. So this is another interesting observation by someone who has been very close to him. Then this another thing which he has said to Lutyens, I think. He says, if I deliberately sat down to write it, that means write his philosophy, I doubt if I could produce it. There is a sense of vacancy, and then something comes. If it were only K, he is uneducated, gentle. So from where does it come? This person K hasn't thought out the teachings. It is like what is the biblical term? Revelation. It happens all the time when I am talking. So this is something K has said, but when I am reading all his other books, I feel his teachings, he's not thought it through, but the insights are coming. Tons and tons of insights. He constantly has insights about deep philosophical insights about things. So now we go into a chapter in this book called The Future of Humanity. This book says, what happened with K was the opening of the chakras in his brain. This is something new for me, that there are 7 chakras in the brain also. This first time I've read it in this book. What happens in K was the opening of the chakras in his brain, which are supposed to be 7 in number. These were supposedly kept open throughout his life. Of these 7 chakras, we know the pituitary and pineal gland, which are both exactly in the middle of the brain. Pineal is just behind the eyes and pituitary is further behind and above. Pineal helps in clairvoyant abilities and pituitary in will. Both will be developed in future humanity. But in case one second. But in case these glands and other centers were made to develop forcefully, which is why he was so much in pain. Perhaps the masters wanted to make one individual who will be like future humanity for all to understand and emulate. Essentially, the non duality, which is present everywhere but not sensed by humans, will develop. Also, as these chakras were kept open, Dhruvi, you have to go out. Dhruvi, as these chakras were kept open and not sealed up as usually done in initiations. See what happens in initiations is they open up the chakras but they also close it, but in case chakras were never closed, they always were kept open. There was always someone, because of this process there was always someone from the white brotherhood who protected K. The experiment might have been to adapt K's brain so that it would be in a greater rapport, or as great a rapport as possible with the brain of the Lord Maitreya. So that's it. This ends part 2, and I'm sorry for the disturbance. I was just explaining that I have a special needs son, and he is watching. I have no one today to take care of him, so there is this constant noise in the background. But I hope you all could listen and something. And if you want me to repeat something, or there are any queries or comments, please, it's open.
You said that there are 7 chakras in the here in the brain.
In the brain.
But I heard that there are sahasra. It is called sahasra. Those thousands of flowers, I believe.
Yeah. That is the 7 CW Ledbeater talk about 7 chakras in the body. So starting with the Mooladhara chakra, which is at the spine. So going up, the Sahasrara is right on the top. These chakras are inside the brain. These are not this is these 7 chakras are inside the brain. Huh?
The chakra in Mooladhara and all that is not there, but only in the brain it is there.
No, ma'am, that is also there. This is also there.
Okay. There are 7 chakras. I heard of Sahasra flowers.
No, in this case, I'll tell you 2 of the chakras. The Ajna chakra, which is here, and which is connected to the pineal gland, and the Sahasrara connected to the pituitary gland. I think these two, I don't know, I'm not sure, I'm confusing the two. One is connected to the pituitary and one is connected to the pineal. Two are already, we know of them. Five more are there in the brain. That's
Okay.
what I understand.
And what about the thousands flowers? What does it mean? Sahasram is thousands.
Yeah, that is the appearance. It looks like a 1,000 petal flower. That's why it's called Sahasrara. It has all of these chakras are wheels which look like flowers of different petals because of the way they rotate. There is a sort of formation of some bands of colors are being formed. So in the case of the Sahasrara, 1,000 petal colors are being formed. So that those images are there in the book Chakras by C.W. Leadbeater. You can look at that. You have it.
And you meant by initiation means each time some chakras open, that is
Yes.
called initiation.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
That is
If
what
all the chakras open, that means he was fully initiated.
see, what are my understanding of initiation and how it corresponds with this is not very clear regarding how the chakras are connected to each initiation. But as I know it, the first chakra, you have to be initiated into the Buddhic consciousness. So that means what? You have to start being able to operate in your higher self or your higher mind, that Buddhic consciousness level. So in this case, they are saying that the opening of the chakras helps to reach that first initiation. We're talking only about the first initiation here. So not the second, third, fourth and all. Only the first one. So there are more and more levels. So it is not just the chakra. It's a lot more than that, is what I understand.
But any chakra can open anytime, isn't it? I mean, it's not that the Muladhara has to come first. Any chakra can open anytime, I think.
No, actually, that all our chakras are always open. All our chakras are always open. They are always functioning in our body. When our consciousness is able to experience through that chakra at that level, when the consciousness is in that level, that is where you are talking about opening of the chakra. It's not the opening of the chakra, it's opening of your consciousness in that space.
Yeah.
So chakras are always working. They are just the energy which is coming in and is going through our etheric body. They are not ever closed. They are always open.
Okay. And Lord Maitreya is meant who? Which Lord? Maitreya means which Lord?
So for this, you need to go to this book called Masters and the Path. You will get a clear understanding of who is Lord Maitreya. Lord Maitreya is the Lord of religions of the current root race. Now we are in the fifth root race, and our head of religion is called Lord Maitreya in Theosophy. He is the one who started. He is the person who was the avatar behind Krishna, behind Zoroaster, and the Christ, and also Buddha. This consciousness has been there in all this and more people. So at some form or the other, he has always been coming. So in our root race, in our fifth root race, it is Lord Maitreya who is the head of religions. There are three people who are in charge of the development of humanity on earth. One of them is Lord Maitreya, the second is the Maha Chauhan, the third is the Manu. Manu is in charge of the physical body's development. Maha Chauhan has another role. And then there is Lord Maitreya. So these three people together form the Trinity, the lower level Trinity which takes care of the earth. So in this, the Lord Maitreya is even higher than the Maha Chauhan, who is higher than our masters.
Okay. Like in Purans, it is Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara. Is it that? No.
No. That is even at even higher than these three. So that is the Logos itself. Yeah.
Thank you. You explained everything very nicely. Thank you.
If any senior member wants to say anything, because I might be wrong, I might have said something wrong. Please correct me.
Vimalji, you explained very well. And this book is a research-based biography of J. Krishnamurti's inner life. And you have assimilated the essence of this book. And that's why you are able to answer all the questions. And we have benefited a lot by your presentation. And anybody can ask more questions from Vimalji, or anybody can input their views. I have benefited a lot.
Thank you, Sushma ji. Lokhandi ji, please say something, sir. Or anybody else would like to say anything? So the main aim of the study is that to understand that throughout Krishnamurti's life, there is this esoteric, this work which the masters are doing on case mind. That is the main idea for that. That there is no separation between Krishnamurti and Theosophy. They are very deeply united. That is why once we become Theosophists, after a certain stage, when we have grasped the knowledge aspect, we have to start studying the Krishnamurti's teachings to change ourselves. A lot of today's what is our conditioning is there's too much conditioning. So there is, unless we read and study Krishnamurti, we won't be able to fully transform ourselves. Especially, he gives a lot of ideas about meditation. So what he talks about meditation, all that we need to research and understand properly. It's not, it is difficult. I'm not saying Krishnamurti is easy, but there is a time when one day you will you'll be able to enter that door. Once you get a little entrance into the understanding Krishnamurti door, somehow you have to push through and keep trying to understand. That's how I feel about Krishnamurti.
True.
Okay, other question. Any idea about K's previous incarnations? Yeah, so there is a whole series written by CWL research where they went back into the lives of Krishnamurti. It's called The Lives of Alcyone. So when you actually read, I have read that book. And what you will notice is that many of these people have come together, have been in his life in different forms. His father, his brother, Rosalind, whom he loved, and Emily Lutyens, whom he also loved, and so many people who were his close associates and friends have always been part of his life, including Annie Besant and CWL have been somewhere in his life. So there is a time when he was there's one story I remember where he was a householder, and his own brother was childless. Krishnamurti and his wife had a child. His own brother was childless. Now I don't know who was that brother. It was not mentioned in the story who was the brother in that incarnation. So what happened is that brother, out of jealousy, killed Krishnamurti's child. Krishnamurti was so distraught that this is during the time of the Gautama Buddha. He went to Gautama Buddha and said, "Please take me into your Sangha." So the Buddha said, "Have you forgiven your brother? Until you have forgiven your brother, you can't join." So then, oops, current has gone. Okay, am I audible? Yeah. So then that's one, I remember that one story of Krishnamurti. So Krishnamurti has been with the Buddha. See, this man has been a seeker in other lives. Obviously, a truth seeker, a seeker of beauty, a seeker of the divine, a seeker of wisdom. Such a human being only will have that level of purity.
I think.
Sorry, the current went away out.
Okay.
So I think we can end, or
Yes. If there is no question.
So the next one will be the last one, in which I will be telling about, very interestingly, there'll be more discussions on Krishnamurti's teachings, and also this aspect of this how his consciousness was pervaded with Lord Maitreya. There'll be more details of that. So next one will be more interesting than this. So please join.
Once again, thank you, Vimalji.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Now we are closing the session. Asato ma sadgamay, tamso ma jyotirgamay, mrityor ma amritam gamay. From the unreal lead us to real, from darkness lead us to light, from death lead us to immortality. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you all the participants.
Thank you, Sushma ji. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.